What's going on, guys? It's the Hunter Project here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you a video on a little snippet of information we got from the Monster Hunter series producer regarding the next stages of the franchise and what the developers have currently got on their plate for 2022 and beyond. As always, a like would be extremely appreciated if you do enjoy the video, and let's jump straight into it. So Ryozo Tsujimoto, the series producer, recently stated that in 2022 their main plans are to deliver Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, which will be the G expansion for the game scheduled for a summertime release, and the main focus initially will be to push that out in a really good form and just making sure all the bugs are covered and all the basic things that they need to push out the game successfully are attended to. And of course, given all the prior Monster Hunter games and G expansions, I can relatively safely say that they probably will push out a pretty awesome expansion. But then he goes on to say how, with the Monster Hunter series celebrating its 20th anniversary in 2024, he should start making preparations for various things soon. In his words, that's what he says. So while this isn't a lot of information to go off, and it is quite vague as to what the plans are, we do know they are cooking something up for 2024, and that is with it in 2 years time. So we do have quite a lot of possibilities. It could be a game, it could be an event in the current Monster Hunter game, it could be anything of the sort. But given we have 2 years to wait for it, it is pretty nice that we can pretty much hope for anything, and it could be a possibility, but of course some things are more realistic than others. So with this fun speculation now out and open for everyone to just jump in and say what they think it could be, what they hope it could be, there are a few things that came to mind for me personally when I saw this. And of course, I would insist on making sure you don't hold your hopes too high, just to avoid disappointment. If you do have hopes for something that's a bit quite massive in terms of them pushing it out, then of course don't hold your hopes too high for it, but it could happen, you never know. So for me personally, the first thing that sprung to mind was related to a little leak or possibly accidental typo of Monster Hunter G coming to Steam. And I think it would make perfect sense if they were able to port this game over or even remake the game fully, as it was their original game. And if they decided to do this game at any point in the in the timeline of releasing Monster Hunter games, the 20th anniversary or any other decade anniversary would be an awesome place to do so, and it would be very, very fitting. And this would be an awesome thank you to all the fans as well, and allow all the newcomers to the series, and there's definitely a lot of them considering the original release so long ago, and this would include myself, who started at Freedom Unite, so I never actually experienced the original, so it would be awesome to experience it with updated movement and graphics. And I would be all for this happening, as I've always wanted to play the original, but just couldn't deal with how bad the mechanics were, especially with the analog combat controls, the chunky hitboxes that would span from one side of the map to the other. And of course that is a bit of an exaggeration, but the gameplay is nowhere as near as good as it is now with Monster Hunter Rise, Monster Hunter World. Even with 3 Ultimate, 4 Ultimate, the gameplay is just not as refined as those two. And of course, as you go along into the future of those games, from 4 to World, from World to Rise, the movement and combat only got better over time. And of course, from World to Rise, you could argue one's better than the other, as they're not exactly a massive improvement. It's more just a variation on it. But I'll stop myself there, as of course I don't want to go too off on a tangent for a game that possibly might not even exist, or might not even be considered to start development on. So regardless, I would love to see this if it was to come to fruition. And the second possibility that I thought of is the release of Monster Hunter 6 or Monster Hunter World 2, whatever you want to call it, and consider that entry that will probably release on the PS... I don't even think probably. It will release on the PS5 and the Xbox Series S and X, and of course PC, as with most games. It is quite likely, considering we did see it mentioned in the massive Capcom data mine that was revealed a while ago, that showed off a lot of the Rise content that was way ahead of its launch, and it also showed off the PC version of Rise, which many doubted, but it did actually come to fruition in the end. So of course this was a long time ago, and plans can easily change and be pushed back, especially when they've not publicly been revealed, so they can easily just push it back. No one needs to know about it. It didn't affect anyone. Obviously it would increase the developers' time, but that goes off on another point that probably doesn't need to be iterated on. Regardless, Monster Hunter 6 would be an awesome celebration on the 20th anniversary of the franchise, and they could even host like an in-game event that would award players with like in-game items, quests to celebrate the occasion, possibly even bringing back Kokoto Village as like maybe a temporary hub or maybe even a permanent hub to just have the story take place there for like a tiny bit of the game, and then have the World 2 or the exclusive Monster Hunter 6 hub that's unique to this game, or whatever they end up calling it. And while I am all for and would love to see the PS2 Monster Hunter remade in like nice graphics, updated mechanics, and all of the like other little things that would come along with remaking the game, realistically I think Monster Hunter 6 would probably be the more realistic choice and most likely what I think is going to happen. And regardless of game releases, they could always just do a big event for the current Monster Hunter game, whatever that may be. Whether that is Monster Hunter Rise somehow and it's still the most current game, which personally I think it won't be, but it might be. Or if it's Monster Hunter 6, I would love to see a HD version of Kokoto Village added to the game. I'm sure they would be able to do it. Lots of games have DLCs nowadays, and that's been the norm for a long time. And I know that we did partially get a HD type remake of the village in Monster Hunter GU, but that was still in the old school graphic style, so I wouldn't really count it. So this is my speculation as to what the 20th anniversary could consist of potentially, given that they are planning it around 2 years in advance. So 2 years, a lot of different things could happen. But regardless of what does happen, I am extremely excited for what the developers have in store for us. And it is crazy to sit back and think of how far we've actually come in the whole scheme of things, considering I started my channel in 2020, in October, around like the 13th I think. And I was just dropping little news videos leading up to the launch of Monster Hunter Rise. And now we're here awaiting the release of the G expansion of Rise, and then the 2024 celebrations, possibly even Monster Hunter 6, but let's not get too ahead of ourselves, because the G expansion of Rise, Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, is looking awesome, and it's coming to the PC as well, so that's perfect for me. That was exactly where I wanted to play the game, with like 60 frames per second and everything else that comes along with a PC version of the game. But with that guys, that does bring us to the end of this video. As always, if you did enjoy, a like would be extremely appreciated. It does help out the channel a ton, and subscribe for a lot more Monster Hunter content. Don't forget to join our Discord, links at the top of the description. Lots of awesome other hunters in there on varying games and platforms. And thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.